keep up. We can watch the video later. Sure. Thank you. We'll talk about that. Wow. Cool. What a great way to start. Up next, we've got Douglas Raymond and Michael, who we already heard from earlier today. And this is the continuation from our flute-assisted meditation that we heard. And now we're bringing it into the technology domain. So take a couple seconds to get set up here.
Kick off while while Michael's getting set up. Good evening. I'm Doug Raymond. I think if you were here at the beginning, you heard Michael's intro. We're from a group of Zen practitioners. My entry into Zen started a while back. I was actually a product manager at Google. I worked on ads for quite a few years, and so the talk Tristan did about influence and how we're sort of taking distraction away is one of the reasons I got into it. So it was great to hear that, the research that you've done, and very welcome. The perspective that Michael and I are bringing to this meeting, it's our first meetup, is how do we understand our consciousness in a slightly different way. Most of the ways that that consciousness is spoken of in everyday situations, or even situations like we encounter in this room, is usually through the mind. And our perspective is a little different. It's about the traditions of how the mind is created by experience in the body. So we're looking at practices that create certain states of mind by inputs into the body, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think I'll turn it over to Michael to talk a little bit more about Harameter, which is our first and our biggest effort so far in technologies that help us harness the body to reach the mind.
So this is kind of we're going to be talking about a product here, but we're going to have to frame it because we're talking about a product for something that people don't know they have. So we're going to start by talking about imagine you have a part of your body that you didn't know existed, yet actually it's the source of all your power. It's related to your entire identity. So the part we're talking about is in Japanese they call the hara, so the koshi, the lower abdomen area. So from Japanese perspective, this is sort of the meeting point of all the physical, psychological, spiritual aspects of a human being. Traditionally, this was a area that was very laborious to develop this. This was again related to identity. In English, we would say somebody has a big heart. In Japanese, you say they have a big hara. If you lose your head, a rose. So you're going from down here up in your body, and then maybe one of the better ones is that as somebody's maturing or sort of developing into a human being. In Japanese, you actually say they finished their hara, or someone's immature, they haven't finished their hara yet. So this part of the body was this critical piece, and it's related to Zen in the sense that Zen has existed for a few thousand years, and it's a technology. It's a technology that was developed to get rid of limitations, to engage sort of the deepest level of a human being. And then we also see on the Western science side, neurophysiologists are finding out, that the idea of brain being the location of consciousness or identity is actually, it's much more of a brain-body connection, that the enteric nervous system is grounded in the gut down here. You hear people talk about the gut-brain, this kind of identity, and that the information traveling to the brain is as important as the information happening in the brain. And so that's a critical element of training in Zen, is that we tend to see a lot of research focused on the output, the result, how do brain waves work, how does the mind focus, all of these states. But there's actually physical inputs. There's physical inputs that create those conditions. And so without getting too much into it, the tradition that I trained in and that Doug is trained in is that using the body as a means to affecting the brain. The term you'll hear is from the Sanskrit word samadhi, this idea of relaxed concentration. In English we would say people being in the flow, people being in the zone, this sensation of removing limitation, breaking down barriers, transcending duality. So again, to set the stage for this, it's that's actually a physical process. There's physical inputs that create that condition. It's not something that you can just think about and think about and think about. We have a saying in Zen that you can't wash away blood with blood, that affecting the brain with the brain is very difficult, and that we actually have this entire set of resources with the human body to do that. And this is also the work, we're sort of here in a proxy for one of our teachers. This is, he's a psychologist and Zen master and author of one of the foremost books in English about Zen and archery. And his teacher about 30 years ago gave him the mission to bring Hara to the West. And up until now, that's been a very difficult thing. Again, it takes a lot of work. You move a lot of stones, you do a lot of martial arts, you just become aware of this. And as you see in other things, once you can measure something, once you can identify it, then you can start to play with it, then you can start to engage it and use it as a tool. And so what we developed currently is we have an analog version, and this was something that kind of developed over the years, which is, again, this is sort of using a pressure cuff to measure the expansion that happens in this area. So you guys heard me blow the flute earlier. And again, what's happening is actually it's a physical process of relaxation in the body with pressure coming down to this part of the body. And the end result is definitely an effect on your own consciousness, awareness, sensitivity. But from a Zen perspective, what's important is actually it has a sympathetic property. So if my body's working a certain way, it actually affects everybody's body around me. And so when we say take away fear, it's actually a physical process, so that the sensation of fear is a physical phenomenon in the body, and it's not just happening up here. And so when one person's body is working the right way, it actually affects everybody in the room, which is ultimately the goal of Zen. So that's 5 minutes of what we're working on. The next step of us is getting the digital version of this, scaling it up, accelerating the process, and then also looking at other applications, how we can use this, sort of developing complete human beings that aren't stuck up here.
Just to add, so ideally what would take, a couple years in a Zen temple somewhere, many hours of dedicated training, if we could find a way to make this small. I've got the spire, which some of you are familiar with, if I can pull it out of my belt loop. Yes. It doesn't fall off. It's much smaller. See, it's hard to find. If we could get something like this and take the thousands of years of training and coursework that exists in analog form and find a way to digitize it, then, sorry, I'm losing the audience, the digital audience, the virtual audience. If we could find a way to miniaturize that and accelerate the training, this would be accessible to a much, much larger audience. That's why we're here.
Thank you. Test. Thank you so much, Doug and Michael. Thank you very much. Let's give them keep it up for them. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to transition into the lightning round.